So Avengers Infinity War is out in theaters right now, and if you've already seen it, then you're probably aware of how mind-blowing this movie is. Seriously, watching Thanos do what he does and seeing all the heroes do what they do, it's crazy. And one of the craziest moments, at least for a couple of people at the 2 showings I've been to so far, was the after credit scene. Seriously, both times there was some guy that just stood up and yelled about it.
In a good way, if I'm being unclear.
Now obviously this scene is huge and I absolutely have to talk about it, so let's get into it. Let's break it down and talk about what all the post-credit scene in Avengers Infinity War really means. By the way, this probably doesn't need to be said, but obviously I'm going to be getting into some major Infinity War spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, then consider yourselves warned. Ready? Alright, let's go. Anyways, the scene starts off with Nick Fury and Maria Hill driving through the streets of New York, talking about how they're detecting a bunch of alien energy signatures in Wakanda. Suddenly, a car swerves and crashes right in front of them, although when they go to check it, it looks totally empty, like nobody was driving it. As a helicopter wildly crashes into a building in the distance and everybody starts panicking, random citizens on the street, Hill included, begin to disintegrate into an ashy looking material. After watching Maria disappear, Fury runs back to their car, grabs an alien looking device, and starts sending a message. But just after he sends it, he too ends up disappearing. That's when the camera pans down to look at the alien device, where we find out he managed to send a message to none other than Carol Danvers, also known as Captain Marvel. Now obviously this scene takes place after Thanos manages to complete the Infinity Gauntlet and do that classic snap from the original 1991 Infinity Gauntlet story. Just a quick explanation in case you haven't read the comic. Thanos, after completing the gauntlet, decides to wipe out half of all life in the universe, fulfilling a promise he made to the physical embodiment of death back in the 1990 Thanos Quest limited series. He manages to do this by raising his gauntlet hand and snapping his fingers, causing half of all life to just disappear. And while the movie has people disappearing in a more dramatic fashion, it's basically the same thing we saw in the comic. And as interesting as it is to think about how the MCU is going to change and move forward because of the snap, that Captain Marvel reveal is the one thing that's really grabbing my attention right now, since up until this point, we really haven't seen or heard anything about her in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye.
Considering how we've been told repeatedly that the MCU's version of Carol Danvers is literally the strongest hero in the universe, you'd think Fury or somebody else would have called her in a lot earlier, or somebody would have wondered where she was. I mean, it would have made a ton of sense to call her in during an alien invasion, or when a robot decided to commit mass genocide, or really during pretty much any other event we've seen on screen so far, right? And not only that, but there's also the fact that Carol Danvers apparently doesn't age, considering how she looks like current Brie Larson back in the 1990s during the events of her solo movie, and won't be aged up to around her late 40s, early 50s for her appearance in Avengers 4. So clearly something's up, right? What's going on here? Well, if you've seen my Captain Marvel theory video from 2017, then you should remember that we looked at an article Inverse published featuring quotes from Dr. Spiros Michalakis, a quantum physicist who acted as a consultant during the production of Ant-Man. In the article, Dr. Spiros talks about Ant-Man and the quantum realm, but also tosses in a little something about Captain Marvel, stating, "This is exciting for the future. There are different ways that some of these ideas appear on screen in a few years, not just for Ant-Man, but also for Captain Marvel and all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe." Now in my earlier theory video, I went with the idea that Carol Danvers seemingly manages to defeat her enemies, the Skrulls, by the end of her solo movie, only to be tricked by a Skrull posing as Nick Fury or somebody else she trusts, and winds up getting trapped in the quantum realm to later be found by Scott and Hope when they go searching for Janet Van Dyne during the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now even though I still really like that idea, I still think we're going to see a Skrull disguised as Nick Fury, and this is mostly going to be the way the movies explain where Carol's been this whole time. Having Nick Fury be the one to contact her kind of throws some of that theory out the window. So with that in mind, I have a different take on my earlier theory to throw out there. Regardless of however Carol Danvers saves the day against the Skrulls, like she destroys a power source or turns them into cows or whatever, part of that save means she's going to have to go into the quantum realm, where she'll only reappear once Fury has literally no other options to resort to and reaches out to her. Like I said earlier, I still really like this idea because not only would this explain a ton of things pretty easily, like why she hasn't been in any other Marvel movie to date, but depending on how she beats the Skrulls, this might also explain where they've been this whole time, since we've really never heard anything about them either. Maybe she lets herself get stuck somewhere in the quantum realm as a way to keep all the Skrulls they know about trapped in there, and Nick Fury's the only one who knows that she's in there, which is why he's apparently the only one to ever reach out to her. Maybe letting her out also lets the Skrulls out, which is why reaching out to her might be sort of a last resort type option. And maybe the fact that he's reaching out to her is what sets up the MCU's comeback from Thanos wiping out half of all life in the universe. Remember back on Titan when Doctor Strange is looking through all those different timelines and he claims that out of the millions he's looked at, only one led to the heroes beating Thanos?
I went forward in time to see all the possible outcomes. Did we win? win any?
It seems kind of weird that even after knowing what all it takes to stop Thanos, Strange just lets Thanos get all the Infinity Stones and wipe out a bunch of living creatures anyway. Unless giving Thanos the stones was the only way to get Nick Fury to call Captain Marvel, who ends up being a key factor in the rematch against the Mad Titan. The only thing that kind of messes this theory up is the original Wasp, Janet Van Dyne. See, Janet apparently aged at a normal rate while trapped in the quantum realm, considering how Michelle Pfeiffer was cast to play the character, and according to some on-set photos, she apparently isn't being de-aged or anything like that, but maybe Carol manages to stay as young as she does because of the Kree DNA in her system. Side note, Carol Danvers got her powers because of this explosion from like a Kree machine that fused her DNA with that of the original Captain Marvel, making her this like Kree human hybrid. Yeah, comics are weird. Regardless, if the MCU version of the character gets her powers in a similar way, Marvel could just say that the Kree part of her genes is how she still looks as young as she did 20 years ago. So just to sum everything up, I don't think Fury knows exactly what all's going on with everybody disappearing like some theories floating around out there would suggest. I think he's just reacting to the idea that the Avengers lost against whoever they're fighting and decides to bring out his last-ditch effort to save the day, fulfilling his part of the vision Doctor Strange had while on Titan, checking all the other timelines. But anyways guys, that's my take on the post-credit scene in Avengers Infinity War. If you guys agreed with anything I said in this video, or if you have your own theories you want to throw out there, then go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you all next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then go ahead and click that like button, and if you're new, maybe consider clicking that subscribe button too. I've also got links to my Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and Patreon in the description. You should probably check those out too. And if you want to see more of my content, then you can click the link to my last video. It's right there in the middle of your screen. Alright, and I will see you all next time.